So basically, Germany did experience a successful bourgeois revolution in the 19th century, but not in the form of a pitched battle of class versus class, but neither did it take place in that manner anywhere else.
Oh, right. Now that kind of reminds me of what I was saying before. I'm not going to recapitulate all of it, but it's like that decisive confrontation with the state power in this
Right.
concentrated way only happens in Russia and in other even more backward societies because
Like China.
yeah, because of what Eley calls in bourgeois, which I think is a really good term for this filtration throughout all of social society, whatever social life of bourgeois relations and thus of social values. And so, actually, this is kind of the norm. It looks like.
Right. I mean, that's his contention. He says bourgeois revolution needs to be recharacterized from one of heroic class struggle to large, complex changes that occur in a prolonged period that establish the conditions necessary for the growth of industrial capitalism. This happens in a series of revolutions from above in Germany in the 1860s and 70s.
I'm trying to think of some other fairly similar processes, like in like Spain and Portugal. Italy is closer to this than to France for sure.
The UK is the really good example of it. You have the English Civil War, right? Which is more about the rights of Parliament than anything else.
Right.
And the economic underpinnings of the society remain unchanged. The only thing that happens is more guarantees are given to Parliament and some checks are put on the power of the aristocracy and the king.
In a very similar way, actually, I would contend that this is also what happened in France. It's just that it happened after the Jacobin dictatorship. It happened in the years from the directorial years through the consulate and the First Empire. It's like a long process. It's just that this very short period of the Jacobin dictatorship and the terror and whatever, the classical revolution, which is actually far in advance of what is necessary and even what makes embougeoirment possible. Because, well, I guess in a different setting entirely, I would like to make the contention that the socialist revolution is born in 1792. It's just not. It doesn't come to full fruition until the 1848 revolutions. And so, actually, what most people think of as the bourgeois revolution is an aberration. It's almost the only one. It's certainly the only one of developed as much as that.
Right.
And what's called the betrayal of the revolution is actually the real, let's say, the political framework for the embourgeoisement of social society, of social life. Yeah,
that's the best kind of society.
That's my favorite kind.
Okay, so one of these series of revolutions has to be seen in the Wars of German Unification, right? Which was broadly progressive and thus captured the support of the liberals. The unification ushered in conditions that were necessary for the growth of capitalist mode of production, such as institutional consolidation of the national market and widespread industrialization. Another one of these top-down sorts of revolutions is what's called the Kulturkampf. It's, the cultural struggle, which are sort of political and religious conflicts between the Catholics and the Protestant state in the Kingdom of Prussia. So, I mean, and when I say it was conflicts, it was basically the Prussian state trying to integrate Catholics more into the social life of the country.
Right.
Right, because Catholics were, a people apart because of their allegiance to, in the eyes of Bismarck anyway, a people apart because of their allegiance to the Pope. And their allegiance should be to the Prussian crown. So it was an attempt to break the political power of the church.
So he had a kind of a Deutschland über alles kind of understanding.
You might say.
Which is actually what that means. A lot of people think Deutschland über alles means Germany overall. And it does mean that, but not over in the sense of being above. I just mean You're not,
first and foremost a German
yeah,
rather than a Saxon or a
or a
Thuringian
Hanoverian or a
yeah,
fucking, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So the Kulturkampf was a struggle to unlock the potential for social progress and free the dynamism of German society from its domination by archaic pre-capitalist institutions. That's what Eley says. And he's talking about, the Catholic Church and the churches in general. But the bourgeoisie was not politically weak or immature. Rather, there were multiple competing tendencies that vied for influence in the German system. To the extent to which the self-interested bourgeoisie existed, it vied for political power through extra-parliamentary means. Eley's contention is that German authoritarianism was not inevitable nor due to pre-industrial continuities, but was overdetermined by forces within German society as it entered into its capitalist phase, specifically the coexisting opposing camps of a power enclave of aristocrats and a massively influential socialist wing, as well as multiple contradictory factions of the bourgeoisie. All of these produced a high degree of fragmentation and political polarization in the post-Bismarckian power block upon which the effective government depended.
So I'm trying to imagine being a listener, and I'm guessing that something about the vying for political power through extra-parliamentary means might be worth elaborating on here.
Okay.
If you can.
So Eley is talking about through like civil structures and through the economy. So the bourgeoisie was incredibly powerful because the bourgeoisie owned the newspapers,
right,
and the banks, and the bourgeoisie controlled the entire economy. The Junker class was primarily landholders and made their earnings off of rents from people that lived on their land and were like not a dynamic part of the economy unless they reinvested their money from landholding into capitalist ventures, which a lot of them did. But they were playing in the territory of the bourgeoisie. So the bourgeoisie was incredibly powerful through these other mechanisms. Like Bismarck needed a loan to, keep his, if Bismarck, this actually I said Bismarck, but this actually happened to Hindenburg. Hindenburg had to get a bunch of money from donors who were bourgeois donors to keep his estate afloat in East Prussia whenever he was president. So he was beholden to bourgeois power interests because of the money that he was given, loans that he was given, and donations that he was given by the rich because of his fruitless land that he owned.
Yeah, see, that makes a lot of sense. And also this reference to the massively influential socialist wing, and as well as the contradictory factions of the bourgeoisie, like it's the struggle between all these various classes that actually helps produce this embourgeoisement. Even though I think it's funny because Marx and Engels are talking about Lassalle, and they're talking about the highly developed bourgeois capitalist economy and the capitalist nature of Germany, and yet we also look back on that when we see an incomplete bourgeois revolution. And I don't know if we really think it through. Like, what do we mean when we say that? Do we just mean that a bourgeois revolution culturally, it always means a liberal political social order? Because that's not really the case. In fact, it's actually because of the efforts of communists in the 20th century that a liberal social order is a political order is the norm now.
The top-down bourgeois revolutions described by Eley are best characterized as Bonapartist in character, are best characterized as Bonapartist. You don't have to say in character because characterized is always in character.
Usually,
specifically using Perry Anderson's inflection, i.e. a capitalist apparatus overdetermined by its feudal ancestry, but fundamentally homologous with a social formation by which the 20th century was massively dominated by the capitalist mode of production. Germany experienced a large-scale confrontation of social forces that coalesced around a coalition of progress / coalition of order, which unlocked the potential for the Prussian state executive to initiate pragmatic modernizing measures, which is to say the feudal apparatus in Germany had no choice but to become bourgeoisified because of the massive power, social power of capital. It essentially swept away the old order, not by like burning it to the ground, but by like just engulfing it, subsuming it, aufhebungen it, if you will.
So what this makes me think, there's probably a lot more, again, in a different episode, but there's some very serious questions that begin to be raised by this. And you can kind of understand a little bit about why there is such a conception of socialism in the Lassallean sense, because of the way in which the capitalist state exercised this decisive role in the embourgeoisement of society. And so I feel like, just whatever, just for all the listeners, learning stuff is cool because the more you learn that you should learn.
Right. The more you learn, the more you know, and the more you know, the more you realize that you need to learn more so you can know more.
Because you don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.